Welcome into the Broadway Happy Hour. You heard it right there. Welcome into the Broadway Happy Hour. As we get people filtering in, the schedule has gone live. You can see it over here to my right, left, whatever it is. The schedule is posted up on titansonline.com. There it is. We got a lot to get into. Hopefully, we will have Mike Miracles join us at Mike Herndon. I am Zach Lyons at F Words Pod. You may see, oh, look, there he is. That is at the Sir Huxley. Don't go looking for it because he's not there. I am in our guest room. We are in the process of moving, so I am kind of displaced studio-wise. Hopefully, Huxley will settle down here in a second. Questions, comments, tell us your thoughts about the Titan schedule in the chat. We are brought to you by BroadwaySportsMedia.com. Broadway Sports Media. Go there if you haven't. We got all kinds of free articles. If you haven't been, what are you waiting for? Free articles, paid articles, content galore, analysis up your ass. We have it all. So head over to BroadwaySportsMedia.com. Unfiltered, authentic opinions and analysis. We are going to get started in here in just a second because I am here. It just happened to be schedule release day on the day that I normally do Broadway Happy Hour when I'm able to do it. And we will be coming to you a lot more than ever. We're on Twitter, we're on Periscope. Use the three little buttons down there, whatever you're on. I'm sure you can share it to all your friends. We need as many people here because it's going to really be the best analysis. Okay, maybe it's not the best, but at least be the most fun. And we're gonna fucking cuss, and you never know what's gonna happen. I mean, like I said, Huxley's here with me. He cusses, he drinks beer. Speaking of beer and happy hour, as I drop my phone, today's beer is brought to you by Broadway Happy Hours, brought to you by Tennessee Sipper Golden Light. It's okay. It's from East Nashville Beer Works. I mean, go check it out for yourself. As I pop it open right here, let's get it going. Let's run through the whole schedule. As you can see over here to my left or right, whatever you're looking at, we start off with Arizona and then at home at Seattle. Then the Colts back at home. Then we go on to a 2-game road trip at New York at Jacksonville. Then we come back home for a little primetime action with the Buffalo Bills. And then we have the Chiefs at home as well. Buffalo Bills game is Monday Night Football. Then we go Colts. Then we have a little bit of Rams action with Sunday Night Football, another primetime game. Then we have Saints at home, Texans at home, at Patriots. Then we have our bye week on week 13. Then we have the Jags at home. Then we go to the Steelers. Then we have Thursday Night Football, December 23rd at home, San Francisco. January 2nd at home against the Dolphins. And then we end it with the week 18 against the Texans. So we have Monday night, Sunday night, and Thursday night, and they're actually all fun games, all fun opponents, unlike those sleeper snooze fest where the Rams battle Chicago and the Ravens battle the Raiders. Like, who the fuck wants to watch those two teams play? I'm referring to the Raiders and the Chicago Bears. Look, we all know that Andy Dalton's probably going to start week 1, and it is going to be a snooze fest. So, first glance, a pretty even, away home split as it goes. We got 2 primetime home games, which is great. I would have thought that, hey, this team doesn't really have that great of an offense. They probably would have, just skipped right over us. And listen, it's going to be really hard to adjust. And Justin here, right here on Periscope, gets it. Week 18 is still weird as fuck to me. And I agree. It is weird as hell to see right there on the screen, week 18. And you know what's great about, though? That we have a week 13 bye week. Now, when Mike Miracles joins us a little bit later, we'll talk about the pitfalls of week 13. But on paper, this looks really good. And right now, what we're going to do is that we're going to roll through all of the games one by one. And listen, I'm not gonna make it boring or anything like that. It's gonna be pretty good, pretty good. As long as you guys like me, that's all that really matters. We're gonna start off with Week 1 against the Arizona Cardinals. It's a home opener. We haven't had a home opener under Vrabel so far, and the last home opener I believe was 2017 against the then Oakland Raiders. And now we're open up against the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals are 3-1-1 in their last 5 opening matches. Let me phrase 1-3-1 in their last 5 opening games. And they are 0-1-1 against, or is it 1-0-1? Sorry, the draw against the Detroit Lions is just throwing me off. They are 101 against since Kyler Murray's taken over. They were a draw in their first year, and then they won last year against the San Francisco 49ers. So they were 8-8 last year, third in the NFC West. Key additions: Rondell Moore, J.J. Watt, A.J. Green, Malcolm Butler, Zayvon Collins, James Conner, and Matt Prater. Key losses: Kenyon Drake, Patrick Peterson, Hassan Reddick. Now, the big thing today is like, okay, we're playing against Malcolm Butler, and I even tweeted out Malcolm Butler revenge game, right? I mean, because that's the narrative that everybody's going to run with. And it was funny that you saw other people tweet out. I believe as Austin Stanley tweeted out that Titans fans earlier this year, whoa, I can't believe we got rid of Malcolm Butler. He's one of the top corners, blah, 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 blah. And then Titans just today say, oh, well, A.J. Brown's going to roast him, blah, blah, blah. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. I mean, or women, they are mutually exclusive. They're not connected. They can both exist in the same reality on the same plane of existence. And what I'm saying is that yes, Malcolm Butler, back when we saw the Titans cut him, was the best cornerback that the Titans have had since when he's healthy and playing. Alternatively, AJ Brown is by far the best wide receiver the Titans have ever had, and AJ Brown's talent far exceeds Malcolm Butler's talent. See how that works? Those both things can exist and be true. They're not two separate entities. They're not, it's not like, the Flash went back in time and, changed up the multiverse or whatever. Those two things actually exist in our reality. Malcolm Butler was the best. AJ Brown can still freaking toast him. It's okay for that to be true. Now, my prediction on the Arizona Cardinals and this game is that I think that there's going to be a little bit of growing pains for this defense, for this offense adjusting, especially with NFLPA being lazy and trying to get rid of the offseason. So I think we may see the Tennessee Titans come slow out of the gate. Now, the Cardinals don't have a lot of turnover. They really haven't lost too much, and they still have Chase Edmonds. They still have DeAndre Hopkins and all these teams. I think that as it sits right now, I would say the Titans win by slim margin of probably a point. I'd say maybe 35-34. I think that there's going to be a defensive touchdown on the behalf of the Tennessee Titans, and I think that the Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry, I think they'll be able to go for it. So I'm going to chalk this up as a win. I'd love to hear what you guys think. So that is Week 1, Arizona Cardinals. We are going to head to Week 2. Week 2 in Seattle. Cannot wait. I'm going to head to this game. It's going to be a blast. I've already seen several people on Twitter say that they're going to the game, and there is a Seattle Titans fan group that is going to throw a tailgate. I am pumped. It better be a crab boil, or I'm just going to drink a beer and I'm going to leave because I got to eat some seafood. The Seattle Seahawks were 12-4 and first in the NFC West in 2020. Key additions: Kerry Hyder, Akilla Witherspoon, Al Woods, Aldon Smith, Gerald Everett, and Dwayne Eskridge. So 3 of those players right there are from rivals, the San Francisco 49ers and the LA Rams, and 2 of those are from the San Francisco 49ers, Kerry Hyder and Akilla Witherspoon. They lost Shaquille Griffin, Jerron Reed, Quentin Dunbar, Carlos Hyde, Philip Dorsett, and David Moore. Now, as I adjust here, because I'll probably be adjusting a lot. I don't have a lot of leg room, so I'm having to kind of sit Indian style. Um, I look at this and I look at Dwayne Eskridge and Gerald Everett, and outside of Jimmy Graham, the ghost of Jimmy Graham, I guess you could say, and maybe partially, healthily available Will Disley. I feel like this is probably the best offense that Russell Wilson has ever had. At this point, I know that there were things like, "Oh, nobody ever gets Russell Wilson," or "He doesn't have an offensive line." Well, at some point, you can't flame out. And I have been a Russell Wilson owner in fantasy for 2 years. And last year it got me. This year I traded him before it happened. So let me tell you this: if you have Russell Wilson, make sure that you trade him round right before your trade deadline because he's going to be zooming right. MVP conversation. Russell Wilson does this. Russell Wilson does that. He is awesome. He's unbelievable, and then he's going to flame out. Someone's got to start bringing that up about Russell Wilson. That towards the end of his seasons, he's hampering the team more than he's helping the team. So, being this is week 2, we already have one win against the Cardinals. I'm going to chalk this one up as a loss. We're going all the way over to the West Coast. It is against Russell Wilson when he's at his best, which is at the beginning of the year, like I just said. I am going to chalk this one as up as a loss. Granted, it's going to be a great time for me. I'm going to enjoy it. I know we're going to lose or going to see the Tennessee Titans lose. Doesn't matter. This one's a loss. So the Tennessee Titans are starting out week 2, 1-1. We are going to head over to week 3, and it is going to come back home to Nashville to the Indianapolis Colts, which we are going to see the Tennessee Titans utterly destroy and dominate because Carson Wentz sucks. That's pretty much it, right? I know that this defense that you're going to see the Tennessee Titans face, the Indianapolis Colts defense, is going to be very, very good. They've added Quiddy Pay and Antoine Woods to an already stout defense headed by Matt Eberflus, who is such an underrated, and I cannot believe that he did not get a head coaching job, defensive coordinator, that this is going to be a good defense and it's going to be hard fought battles. It's not going to be massacres or anything as far as the Colts coming in destroying us or anything. These are hard fought battles. However, they traded for Carson Wentz, this loser of a quarterback who basically alienated himself from his teammates and coaching staff in Philadelphia, that he even got them all fired even though that he was leaving. Like, the coach's staff left, right? And Howie Roseman is like, "Yeah, I still don't want the quarterback." So this guy is out of here. So I'm looking at this right here, and I am thinking that Carson Wentz is still going to be the Carson Wentz of Philadelphia that everybody saw last year. And this is going to be Danico Autry revenge game. He's probably going to sack and maybe even get a sack fumble and return it for a touchdown, fat man touchdown. And the Tennessee Titans, your Tennessee Titans, my Tennessee Titans are going to start out 2-1 by the end of week 3. So we are going to head over to week 4 at the New York Jets. They were 2-14, last in the AFC East, almost got the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes here. Instead, they have to settle for a little small child. I'm going to call him Little Bud, Zach Wilson. And then you have Corey Davis, Carl Lawson, Sheldon Rankins, Gerard Davis, Keelan Cole, Elijah Moore, and Elijah Vera Tucker all added to the same team. This is not going to be your same New York Jets. They do have Robert Saleh. They have Mike McDaniels. They have a great coaching staff. And their only key losses were a bunch of guys that you really don't need because you replaced them somewhere in that long list of key additions. I mean, you're talking about Henry Anderson, Pat Elflin, Jordan Jenkins, Terrell Basham, and Brashad Perriman. Listen, the AFC East is going to be tough. Now, let me say this. For the New York Jets, this all hinges on Zach Wilson being what they thought Zach Wilson was when they drafted him. If that's not the case, then the New York Jets are going to have a tough time because this team is all about the quarterback. Now, they have Mike McDaniels, and Mike McDaniels is a great could be a great OC. So let me say that. He's supposed to be, right? He is from the McVay tree. He's supposed to be this great offensive mind. He's going to put Zach Wilson in a key to succeed. And I think what you're going to find is that the New York Jets are going to be a little bit better than what they thought, but they're still in the AFC East. The Patriots got exponentially better. The Bills got better somehow. And on top of that, the Miami Dolphins also get better. You're talking about probably the most improved division in the AFC, maybe even in the NFL. Again, it all hinges on Zach Wilson. Luckily, the Tennessee Titans defense should be, knock on wood, fully healthy when this comes around. You expect Caleb Farley to be getting into a rhythm. You expect Bud Dupree to be getting in his rhythm, all back from injury. Because I say fully healthy because Bud Dupree and Caleb Farley are going to have to kind of get back into playing shape a little bit, probably work off a little rust. I think that you're going to see the Tennessee Titans in New York go 3-1 to start the year. 3-1 against the New York Jets by the end of week 4. We are going to head now. Jacksonville. Ugh. Gosh. Isn't it the worst to say that you have to go to Jacksonville? I know that Buck Risen, friend of the podcast, he hates Jacksonville. And who wouldn't? It's a trash city. It's the worst. And now they may have Tim Tebow and that shit show that he's going to bring with him. Give me a break. I didn't even add Tim Tebow to key additions. They were 1-15 last in AFC South. Key additions: Trevor Lawrence, Marvin Jones, Shaquille Griffin, Carlos Hyde, Travis Etienne, and Philip Dorsett. And then they only lost Keelan Cole, Al Woods, Chris Conley, and Rashawn Melvin. Look, they added some good pieces and everything. The problem lies within the coaching. That is the problem that you have with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Can Brian Schottenheimer, idiot extraordinaire, get the most out of Trevor Lawrence? Maybe. But here's the thing. Trevor Lawrence has had it pretty easy in college. And now he's going to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars, where the fan base is expecting him to be some fucking savior on high coming down from Mount, Sinai with the 10 commandments of how to win football. The problem is that he's saddled with Urban Meyer, Brian Schottenheimer, and Darren Bevel. Now, I really don't have a problem with Darren Bevel. I just think that, you got Darren Bevel down there, and Brian Schottenheimer took Darren Bevel's job. Nobody ever talks about that on this Jaguar staff, but, Brian Schottenheimer became the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks after Darren Bevel left. And then Darren Bevel Brian Schottenheimer also disgraced and shit all over Trevor Lawrence when he was on the recruiting trail. And look, Marvin Jones is good, but he's not number one wide receiver good. And I know DJ Shark is there, and a lot of people are going to say that, he's the wide receiver one, but he disappeared last year. What happened to him? He was wide receiver one in his second sophomore year, and then he suffered the junior year slump. Is that even a thing? I mean, I'm just not afraid of this team, and I don't think anybody in the NFL should be. The defense is still bad. The offensive line is bad. The coaching is bad. The GM is bad. Trevor Lawrence is a bright spot, but he's probably going to be the third or fourth best rookie out of this quarterback class. There's only so much that I can put my money on here, and I'm looking at the Tennessee Titans. They own the Jaguars. Derrick Henry loves just running over the Jaguars, and here we are heading into week 6, and this Tennessee Titans team is 4-1. This is not homerism. I think this is just how the schedule starts, because we're going to get it's going to get a little bit gross here, because week 6, the Buffalo Bills. It's a primetime game. And unless the Tennessee Titans somehow get COVID and get this game pushed back, I don't have a lot of faith that the Tennessee Titans are walking away with the W right here. They somehow the Buffalo Bills lost nothing and gained everything. look at this. They were 13-3 last year, first in AFC East. Josh Allen became a man on fire, a man possessed, and Emmanuel Sanders, Matt Breida, Gregory Rousseau, Carlos Basham, and Spencer Brown. Sure, those are three rookies, but those two edge guys were some of the. I say this: Carlos Basham was one of probably my favorite prospects to watch, and Greg Rousseau. The problem with him was that, like, what can you get out of Greg Rousseau? Well, he's going to the best place and the best staff to get the most out of him, and Sean McDermott is the guy that's going to get the most out of Greg Rousseau. This is the perfect landing spot. And then they still kept Cole Beasley, right? So they got Cole Beasley. They still have Stephon Diggs, and now they got Emmanuel Sanders right on with it. I mean, the rich get richer. This is how you build a team in a Super Bowl window, people. John Robinson, look at what Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane are doing. They are investing on both sides of the ball. They invested heavily on offense last year, and now they're investing heavily on defense this year. They're somehow getting younger, better, and spending money. It's it's a it's a weird thing to watch because I hate the Buffalo Bills, but you got to respect what they're building, and you got to respect what they're doing and building around their young quarterback. And right now, this is an L. I mean, granted, injuries can happen to the Buffalo Bills, but the Buffalo Bills, that is an L. And going in from 6 games and walking out those first 6 games at 4-2 while playing two of your NFC West opponents and two divisional opponents and the Buffalo Bills and walking out 4-2, I'll take it. Take it all day, every day. I'm not going to look at, not going to, throw my nose up at that. And then it's the Buffalo Bills. And then we got to turn around and we see the Kansas City Chiefs, who lost in the Super Bowl last year, but they were 14-2, first in NFC West. They added Joe Thuney, or Joe Tooney, I don't know how you pronounce his last name, Jerron Reed, Will Parks, and Jerick McKinnon. They lost out on Sammy Watkins, who gives a shit, Eric Fisher, Mitchell Schwartz, both injured, and Damian Williams, who ended up being just a jag like he's always been. Didn't really lose a lot. But they didn't really gain a lot either. I mean, you're looking at this offense and looking at these wide receivers, and it's just going to be the same thing that it's always been: Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelsey, and it's going to be Tyreek Hill. And you hope, if you're a Chiefs fan, that Clyde Edwards-Helaire becomes something that he's not. And you hope that provides you enough firepower to keep Patrick Mahomes from having to scramble and having to do fantastic plays. Here's the thing: this defense for the Tennessee Titans, it got faster. And while Rashawn Evans is still out there and is waiting to be spun around someone's head like a helicopter, I think that this defense is built right now to beat Patrick Mahomes. And this offense is built right now to beat the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Now, here's the thing: they still got to go out there and do it. And I have Mike coming in right now. Mike, we are talking the Kansas City Chiefs, and let me get your feelings on this game. First, let me go back to the Bills game. The Bills game I thought was interesting. Up until this point, I have us at 4-1, with the only loss being to the Seattle Seahawks in Week 2, because Russ at the beginning of the year is much better than Russ at the end of the year. So 4-1. I think this is your Super Bowl winner right here, Buffalo Bills. They lost
Super
nothing.
Bowl winner.
Yeah, they lost
Wow.
nothing, gained everything. They, over these last 2 years, they've invested the correct way. They filled needs through free agency and have got great depth on defense and on offense as well. I have this as a loss at 4-2, so this drops us down to 4-2. What are your feelings on this Buffalo Bills game? Is this going to be a loss or a win? And what do you think about this Buffalo Bills team?
You know what? I'm gonna give the Titans a win in this game simply because it's home game, night game. Titans have I feel like the Titans at home in night game situations have performed pretty well lately. So and I've obviously thumped the Bills last year. I know they'll want revenge and everything, but I feel like there's a little bad blood that goes both ways in that matchup. So I kind of think that's a win for the Titans.
Well, here's the problem: is that, do you think the Tennessee Titans are going to get COVID and this game's going to get postponed up, to Thursday or Wednesday? Because I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Mike Vrabel has a great track record with more time to prepare. I just don't feel it. I just not feeling good on this game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you. I mean, it's a tough game. It's one of the toughest matchups on the schedule. Um, but I mean, yeah, I think home game. It's going to be a great atmosphere. I mean, that's obviously there's going to be 2 home games before that, but they'll have been gone for basically 3 weeks before they play the Bills. And if they do come into that game with a winning record, especially, and you'd hope they'd be coming in off of 2 wins over the Jets and Jaguars. The stadium's going to be electric. It's going to be a great atmosphere. It's going to be probably the most hype atmosphere in that building in quite some time, considering we barely had any fans there last year because of the COVID deal. So yeah, I think it's going to be big. I think it's going to be a big game, and I think the Titans show up for big games.
Okay, so here's why I was talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. Is I kind of think this defense right now is set up to stop Patrick Mahomes, barring any injuries or anything. I think this. And listen, I said yes, Rashawn Evans still exists, and yes, he's waiting to be spun around, like a top, like a dreidel. But I think this defense is fast enough and can cover a little bit better Tyreek Hill with Caleb Farley and Jackrabbit, and then I just think this defense is just a lot better than what it has been. And I think our offense actually matches up really well with the Kansas City Chiefs defense. And I think this is a game and Todd Downing's kind of familiar with the Chiefs and Andy Reid from his time over in Oakland. I kind of get the feeling this is going to be, to me, Bills chalk it up as a loss, guaranteed loss in my mind. But like I'd flip around on the next week and I'm like, okay, against Kansas City Chiefs, chalk it up as a win, no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, so I look at it this way. You'd love to get a split out of Bills Chiefs, right? That back to back combination, you'd love to split those two. Um, if you can win them both, then that's tremendous. You've just beaten probably the what would be consensus 2 best teams in the conference, right? So if you can split with those 2, then that kind of puts you right among them, right? But these are going to be huge games right here in this stretch for tiebreakers too. Like, yeah, I mean, if the Titans want to take that next move, or that next step and move up to that Bills Chiefs line, then that's who they're going to be competing with for first round buys and seeding and home field advantage in the playoffs and stuff like that. And it was great that they won the division last year and got a home playoff game. And obviously it didn't work out. It didn't end up meaning anything in the end. But I do think home field advantage matters. And these are 2 teams that you feel pretty good that if the Titans have the season that they want to have, you're going to be competing with at the end of the year. And these head-to-head tiebreakers in non-division games are huge when it comes to playoff seeding at the end of the year. So I think these are 2 critical games. If you lose both of them, you can basically kiss being a top 3 seed goodbye. I think or top 2 seed goodbye in my opinion. That's it. You can't lose both these games and expect to climb that mountain. So they need to go win at least one of these. If you sweep them, then great. But you split these 2, you feel pretty good about that, and then you kind of go down the rest of the schedule. But I think they're more likely to beat the Bills than they are the Chiefs, personally.
Ooh, see, I don't know why. I just have this feeling that is I'm the opposite. I listen. Maybe we're both right, and they win both games.
Hey, or maybe we're both right and they lose both
Yeah,
games.
that's true. All right. So week 8 sees the second game against the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. I've already talked about how shitty Carson Wentz is, but talked about how good this defense has gotten. It feels like it got younger without losing a step. But it's the second game in 8 weeks, and I feel like, to me, if the second game, you can almost chalk it up as a Titans win. And I've already given the Titans the win the first go around, and I think this is going to be the year where they have a known quarterback. I guess I should say. I was going to say semi-competent, but I think that's giving him too much praise. A known quarterback, and the Titans are going to sweep them. And I think the Titans are going to sweep the Colts this year. Thoughts on that, and what do you think?
um, I wish I could join you in hoping and predicting a sweep of the Colts, but I just can't. I can until I see them just be more consistent against this team. I can't remember. God, I'd have to go look it up, but I can't. I don't know that the Titans have swept the Colts in like a decade.
Oh, the Jacoby Brissett years.
No, that's right. That's right. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, the Jacoby Brissett year, they did sweep him that year. So besides the, the year that their quarterback retired out of nowhere, the Titans have not swept the Colts in forever. So you could say Carson Wentz maybe not a huge upgrade over Jacoby Brissett, given what he did last year. In fact, he'd be a downgrade if he plays like he did last year again. But the defense is certainly going to be salty. I think the question with the Colts to me is Xavier Rhodes, was last year a fluke bounce back year, or is that going to be a sustained thing? And I mean, he's getting up there in age. He was never the fleetest of foot type of guy. But I don't know. Rock Ya-Sin, I don't think is very good. Kenny Moore is a good player, but I don't know. I still have some questions about the Colts secondary, specifically the cornerbacks, the outside corners. So yeah, we'll see. That's the Achilles heel on that defense, I guess is my point. And plus, look, sure they drafted Kwity Paye, they drafted Deo, but they didn't bring back Justin Houston. They didn't bring back Danico Autry. Those were, DeForest Buckner aside, probably their two best defensive linemen last year. Assuming that defense is just going to get better because they've got different guys in there, younger guys in there, I don't think is necessarily a good assumption. So I don't know. I could see the Colts fall, being a little shaky on defense. They didn't do anything to help the offense really. Eric Fisher, even if he's healthy, is a downgrade compared to
Anthony Costanzo.
Anthony Costanzo. And I don't know if you already addressed this when you're talking about the first Colts matchup, but the Titans getting the Colts in week 3 is a big deal because that's probably no Fisher.
I
in
did
that
not
game.
talk about that actually. So that is very good that you bring that up because I did not even add, as you can see under key additions, I didn't even add Sam Tevy because he's such a non-factor in my mind. He shouldn't even be in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah. He really shouldn't be after that the last time he played the Titans. I think he gave up 7 pressures, and that was against the corpse of Cam Wake.
Yeah. Well, heading off into the next week, we're talking about week 9 here for the Tennessee Titans at Los Angeles Rams, 10-6 and second in the NFC West. They have gotten, I think, better. The more I dived into their offseason, I think they got better. And they have Matthew Stafford, Ja'Shawn Jackson, and Tutu Atwell. But they lost, they didn't really lose Jared Goff, but they lost Josh Reynolds, Gerald Everett, Malcolm Brown, and John Johnson. It's kind of, I feel like it's another 10-7, 11-6 kind of year, second in the NFC West. And I think that Matt Stafford has the chance to dot some teams up, and this is going to be the best that you've ever seen Matt Stafford play.
Dotting them up.
But I don't think that this team's that great. Am I wrong?
I think, there's obviously the question on defense is going to be what they do without Staley, their defensive coordinator, who was really instrumental, I think, in the turnaround of their defense. Like, yes, they have Aaron Donald. Yes, they have Jalen Ramsey. Those guys are fantastic. But they did lose John Johnson. They don't have like a tremendous amount of super talented guys outside of those 2 superstars. And yeah, I mean, the 2 superstars kind of carry them to some degree, but they were there the year before and that defense wasn't that great. I think Staley deserves a lot of credit for what he did with that defense a year ago. And I could see them slipping back a little bit defensively. Offensively, I think they'll be better with Stafford. I think Stafford's a better quarterback than Goff by a fairly comfortable amount. I still don't know that they've done enough to fix the offensive line, though, which I think was a major problem for them. Even the last couple years, they keep going out and getting all these skill position players and toys, for Sean McVay to play with. But again, they never really replaced Roger Saffold. They never really replaced Andrew Whitworth. And I know he's kind of come back and played here and there, but he's not the same guy that he was a couple years ago. They never really replaced what was their center's name, John Sullivan. Um, they never really replaced those guys, so I don't feel like that offense is going to flip back to what was it, the 2018 offense that was just, lighting the league on fire and looked unstoppable. I don't know that they're going back to that because I don't think their offensive line is that good.
Okay, so let me ask you this, and I think I got my volume fixed. So people in the chat can let me know on that. Um, Let me ask you this: we got Robert Woods, we have Cooper Cup, and we have now Deshaun Jackson / Tutu Atwell. Right? This is probably the outside of Seattle, the first big, I think, test for this secondary. How do you see this shaping up? We talked a little bit about this in the chat, but do you think that this team is going to shadow or play sides?
I think that'll be one of the most interesting kind of things to track early on because Dean Pease, we know, and he's given interviews that he's talked directly about this. He was adverse to shadowing receivers with his cornerbacks because he didn't want to give a man zone tell pre snap. He said, and this was direct quote from him on a podcast. He if you line up on in the same sides with the same corners playing the same sides every snap, they have no idea what you're in. And as long as you trust your guys to cover, and there's also, some I guess additional benefits for technique. Your technique's always the same. You're not flipping sides and having to worry about, stepping with this foot versus that foot. Your technique's the same every drop, every play. There's some benefits to playing sides, right? Obviously, the benefit for shadowing is if you have a matchup physically that you like say Caleb Farley, who's 6'2", 207, and has super long arms, and you want to put him, shadowing, let's say DeAndre Hopkins, who, wins with size and length more so than he does with speed. I mean, Farley's also got the speed, but Farley, from a physical standpoint, is going to be able to bother, I think, a DeAndre Hopkins a little bit more than a Christian Fulton, who's a little bit smaller, right? Now, from a matchup standpoint, week one, you may want Janoris Jenkins going up against Hopkins if you're shadowing, just because he's a veteran, he knows what he's doing, he's got the technique stuff down that he's not going to be abused on the technique standpoint, or from a technique standpoint like a rookie might be by DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm interested to see how they approach it. Last year, they did shadow a little bit more, so it could have just been a Pease thing and not necessarily a Vrabel thing, kind of playing sides all the time, regardless of situation. But we'll kind of see. I mean, I feel like the defense played a little bit better when they shadowed last year because, Butler was able to follow some of the top guys, and, like against the Bears, he followed Allen Robinson and really limited Robinson in a big way. I think Robinson still ended up with like 4 catches for 80 yards, but he was not a big factor. A lot of that came late in that game when it was kind of out of reach. So they were pretty effective doing that. They've got some guys that match up interestingly in that secondary now with Farley with the length. Jenkins still has the speed, and then of course Fulton is kind of more your technician, kind of all around type of guy. So they've got some different body types, different style corners that they can mix and match with, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them kind of shadow guys a little bit more this year, just because of that kind of mix they've got in the secondary.
This will be a very tough test, and really will be good to see where the Tennessee Titans are at, because this is technically, you could call it the halfway point of the year, and they haven't had a bye, and they're going all the way out to the West Coast, and it's against a really good offense, and it's against a defense that still has Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, and Jalen Ramsey. I mean, this is going to be a really, really good test for the Tennessee Titans. I'm anxious to see how it plays out. We're going to head to our supposed Week 18 opponent. When it was announced that there was 17 games, this was going to be the one slotted in. Week 10, New Orleans Saints, 12-4, first in the NFC South. They added Nick Vanette, Trill Williams, Paulson Adebo, and Peyton Turner. Key losses: Drew Brees, who retired, Janoris Jenkins / Jack Rabbit, Trey Hendrickson, Sheldon Rankins, Emmanuel Sanders, and Jared Cook. Now, obviously, Jameis Winston is going to be the quarterback heading with the New Orleans Saints, and
Obviously,
I think it's obvious. I mean, it's got to be,
obviously.
right? It has to be. It
I don't
can't
know.
be.
Sean Payton loves him some Taysom Hill. Loves him.
Oh my God! So here's what I'm going to say about this: is that in the group chat, I pretty much said that you can expect double-digit wins from the New Orleans Saints, and I don't really think they're going to be that bad. And then when I started really diving in today and looking at
Uh-oh.
everything that they lost, I'm a little nervous. I think they can get to 10 wins. Okay, I think they can get to 10 wins, and I think that's the floor. But that may also be their ceiling. The Tennessee Titans are going to dominate the New Orleans Saints, right? Like, this is just going to be an utter massacre, barring injuries. If both teams are healthy, they are going to go in and go in Nissan Stadium. Everybody's going to be there. The crowd's going to be lit. And do kids still say lit? Is that still a thing?
I'm not sure.
Well, let me tell you this. Fucking going to be lit in Nissan Stadium. And I think they're just going to destroy the New Orleans Saints and break their will. It's going to be that one game that we always see the Tennessee Titans play one or two games against an opponent with that everybody thinks is better than they are, and they just dominate them. This is that game.
Okay, I like it. I have been on the Saints are going to regress pretty significantly. So they still have some things, right? Like you still got Cameron Jordan, you still got Demario Davis, you still got Marshawn Lattimore, you still got Marcus Williams on defense. You still have a good offensive line, really good offensive line, in fact. And you've still got Michael Thomas, maybe if he doesn't end up getting traded.
Is that a thing?
There's rumblings with Michael Thomas. I mean, things got really bad with him there last year.
Okay, let me ask you this sidebar. We're going off the rails. We may
Yeah.
not make it as a full happy hour, so be the first time ever. But I want to know: would you rather have Julio Jones or Michael Thomas?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd probably rather have Michael Thomas,
Yeah,
honestly.
we agree. I agree with that because he's younger.
Yeah, he's
And
27
he really probably fits more
or
what the
28.
Titans
Sorry.
want, right? Because he's big and he blocks. Like that's the two things they care about. They don't even care if you can catch.
And he plays, kind of that big slot role too. So he could come in, he could play, in the slot, give them that physicality that they like. And I think, unless I'm mistaken, I think Mike Vrabel might have overlapped with him at Ohio State at some point. Maybe Vrabel was on his way out when his recruiting class was coming in or something. It would have been very close, but we may have to do some research there. But yeah, could be an interesting fit there if Michael Thomas is disgruntled and the Saints are done with him or whatever, which they very well may not be. They might have kissed and made up in the offseason. But yeah, that would be very interesting. But anyways, what I was saying, all that being said, the downgrade from Drew Brees to Jameis Winston is enormous, even if you believe Sean Payton's going to fix Jameis to some degree. I think they could still put up points, but I think it's going to be.
He was there. He was there the whole time that he overlapped. He overlapped.
Okay. All right. So I
So
don't
are
know.
we saying right here that everybody should be asking Buck, are the rumors true that the Titans are interested in trading for Michael Thomas?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So let's make that the new Malcolm Butler to IR.
Yeah. Everybody should be, kind of spreading the rumors, hinting at, well, Michael Thomas, he was a little disgruntled last year. I hear they may trade him. And, him and Mike Vrabel spend a little time crossing over at Ohio State. And, the Titans need a big slot wide receiver. And I hear there's rumors that they're connected. There you go. I've done the
Rumblings.
work for you.
Laid it out there.
Laid it out there. Oh, he will love that. But Titans win, right?
I think so. Yeah. I think the Titans are the better team. I think they're going in opposite directions. And here comes the Saints are going like this. The Titans are going like this. I
I
think.
like
Yeah.
that. I like that. That was very good for it was very
Visual aid.
very good visual aid. The Tennessee Titans had to, or actually stay home and play against the Houston Texans, who may or may not have Deshaun Watson. The latest rumors are is that he's settling everything, every plaintiff he's settling with. So obviously, probably not true if that's the case that any of that stuff happened, even though that was a fucking wild and weird story about someone. And so key additions to Rod Taylor, Lane Taylor, Chris Conley, Desmond King, Philip Lindsay, Davis Mills, Nico Collins, and Brevin Jordan, who apparently every scout is gushing over Brevin Jordan after the fact. All the executives are praising this pick. And then the key losses are J.J. Watt, Will Fuller, and Darren Fells. Mike, they were 4-12 with Deshaun Watson, third in the AFC South. Are they four? Are they the third place team in the AFC South again? I mean, doesn't it seem like they're
No,
just destined to
they're
be
fourth.
4-13?
They're fourth. They're worse than the Jaguars. The Jaguars are going to be better than
Whoa!
them.
You
Yeah.
think the Jaguars are going to be better than the Texans?
Yeah. I don't know what if Deshaun Watson. Let's say this: if Deshaun Watson plays all the games, then maybe I change my mind and say the Texans are better. But I don't think he's going to play all 17 games. I think he's going to either be suspended or traded, or maybe just on the commissioner's exempt list for at least part of the season, maybe all of it. And if that's the case, I don't know what the redeemable value is of the Texans. They don't have a good offensive line. They have, an injury prone receiver in Brandon Cooks, who is very good when he's healthy, but, isn't healthy very often. They have a bunch of bad running backs. They've got a terrible defense that didn't get any better. Didn't get any better. In fact,
None
you
of these
might
special
argue it
team
got
players
worse.
are going to do anything on defense, Mike. I mean, they got 13, 14 special team players.
It's going to be a disaster on defense. I mean, where are you getting good defense from with this group? Here's your starting lineup right now. Hey, let's just read through their defense. Charles Omenihu, fine, okay. Ross Blacklock, Malik Collins, Whitney Merciless, and who's like 32 and hasn't been good in 3 years. Zach Cunningham, Kamu Grugier Hill,
Who?
yeah. Shaq Lawson, who was a backup in Miami last year, Vernon Hargraves, Lonnie Johnson Jr., Justin Reed, Bradley Roby, and someone named John Reed. I guess
That is
multiple
not
Reeds.
that is not their starting lineup, is it?
That's their starters. That's their starters.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So who's making plays on that defense? Nobody. There's nobody. They're
Wow.
going to be the worst defense in the NFL. And even if Deshaun Watson does play, their ceiling is 4 wins.
Okay, here in that lineup, does this team get more or less sacks than the 2020 Tennessee Titans defense?
Oh, less.
Woo! That's a
Less than
sports
19.
stat. Less than
Yeah.
19.
Yeah,
Wow.
less than 19 sacks.
So
In 17 games, too.
the Tennessee Titans will obviously they're obviously going to sweep the Texans, right? I think there's a good chance that they go 6-0 in the division.
I wouldn't say good chance. I think
I think
I
there's a
think the
good chance.
Colts are going to be tough. I think the Jaguars are going to be feisty enough to possibly split with them. I mean, obviously the Jaguars almost got them last year here in the first game, and the Jaguars are certainly capable of that random game where they're like, oh, look at us, we're plucky and upstart, and then it's just it just all falls apart from there, and they end up losing like 12 games, but they're good enough to make some noise, I think. And if you show up expecting to just thump a team that went 1-15 last year, you might get caught. Is all I'm saying. So I think they're going to go at least 4-2 in the division, but 6-0, that's tough. That's tough to do.
Yeah, it's tough to do, but I think it's going to happen this year. I can feel it. Week 12 at the New England Patriots, and New England got they looked at last year when they went 7-9 and third in the AFC East. They said, "Not anymore. It's over. That is done. That's never going to happen again." They added Mac Jones, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, Nelson Aguilar, Henry Anderson, Matt Judon, Kendrick Bourne, and Kyle Vanoy. Key losses are just Julian Edelman, he retired, Jason McCourty, who was really old, Rex Burkhead, who was a non factor, Joe Thuney, and Demir Bird. I mean, they were 7-9 last year with a hampered Cam Newton, no offensive weapons, and now they've pretty much just revamped that whole offense. They still have Jacoby Myers, still have Cam Newton if he starts. They have Damian Harris and Sony Michelle who stuck around. James White, I did James White end up sticking with the Patriots? No, he went to
Uh,
the Giants, didn't he?
oh yeah, I think he's gone. I think
But
he's gone.
either way, it doesn't really matter. This is a team that's going to go from 7-9 to double-digit wins and probably second in the AFC East. That's, I mean, like I said this at the beginning of talking about the Jets. The AFC East is, to me, the hardest division to really choose because you got Bill Belichick and all these weapons and this totally revamped team. You have the Buffalo Bills, who are really good. You have the Dolphins with Brian Flores, who seems to, you know, make diamonds out of crap. And then you got Robert Saleh, who they did a lot of work over at the New York Jets to improve this team. This is probably the toughest division in the NFL, in my opinion. And I think
Oh,
that, yeah,
I
I
don't
do.
know.
I
I don't
do.
know
I
about
think
that.
it's the toughest for me to pick a winner. Like, I think
Okay,
the Buffalo
okay.
Bills would win because I obviously got them in the Super Bowl, right? But you can make a case for any of these teams except for the Jets to win this division. I don't know if the Titans go up to Boston and walk away with a win.
I think it'll be tough because the Patriots. I believe way more in the Patriots defense, especially if they end up keeping Stephon Gilmore and J.C. Jackson, which it looks like it's trending towards them finding a way to keep both of those guys on the roster for another year. And if that's the case, that defense is going to be really good. They're getting Dante Hightower back. They got Kyle Van Noy back. They got Matthew Judon, who I don't love as a investment, but as a player is going to help them. They're going to be really good on defense. The offense, I'm still not totally sold on. Just frankly, Aguilar was a nice player for the Raiders last year. I don't know that he's a number one wide receiver. I don't think Kendrick Bourne's a number one wide receiver, even though again I liked him with the Niners in his role. But I think you just signed two wide receiver threes and are trying to make one of them be a wide receiver one.
Don't
I
think
think
Jacoby Myers is the wide receiver one.
I don't think so. No, I think he's a complimentary guy. Honestly, I think the Titans wide receiver room is better than the Patriots wide receiver room.
Yeah, I think
Um,
AJ Brown helps that a lot. I mean, like
right, yeah, and
yeah,
he's the difference maker. But I think the Patriots wide receiver is still questionable. I like Johnny Smith. I like Hunter Henry, but I don't know that either one of those guys are like game changing type talent. So I don't know what to make of the Patriots offense right now. Who's going to be the starter at quarterback? Is it going to be Cam Newton? Is it going to be Mac Jones? Because those are very different types of quarterbacks. So I feel like they've got to make a decision pretty quickly and build an offense around that guy. And if it's Cam, can he rekindle his game enough? Because the way he played last year and frankly the last couple years, I don't know that he's good enough to make these guys good on offense. So I don't know. I'm very hesitant about the Patriots offense. I still think they're going to be about a 500 football team. I think the defense is very good. I think the offense is very, very questionable. It could all turn up roses, right? Like all of it could work. Mac Jones could turn out to be the next Tom Brady, and they go into this crazy 12 personnel offense, and they're just killing people with these tight ends, and they unlock Jonnu Smith's game changing ability, and all of a sudden boom, they're back. That's a lot that has to go right, I think, for them before I'll believe that.
Well, hopefully I don't blow out the speakers on Dwayne's thing because I just turned my volume way up because there's really no way. It looks like that should be good. Hopefully Dwayne
You
can pop in the chat.
you sound good in here for me, but I don't
Okay.
know. I don't
Well,
know.
we'll see. We'll see what Dwayne says here in the chat here in a second. So, New England Patriots matching up with them, going up to Boston. Bill Belichick, he knows Ryan Tannehill. I kind of chalk this one up as a loss. We're seeing the Tennessee Titans heading into the bye. They're probably looking a little bit ahead to that, and I think that right now, I think that that is going to end up being a loss right here. And maybe I should have probably turned my volume down when I'm predicting a loss, and nobody would ever heard me say that. So we're going into the bye. And I'm so glad that you're here for that. Because here's the thing with the Tennessee Titans. Last year, they lost their bye week, right? Technically, they got it because of COVID or whatever. But, they were 11-5 last year, first in AFC South. Key additions: Bud Dupree, Jack Rabbit, Nico Autry, Josh Reynolds, Caleb Farley, Dylan Radens, a bunch of other players that could be probably named because they revamped that entire defense. Key losses, though: Corey Davis, Johnny Smith, Dennis Kelly, Jadavian Clowney, Malcolm Butler, Kenny Vaccaro. A week 13 bye. I think most people are going to say and look at this schedule and say, that's a good one. That is a good time to have the bye week. They're going to be tired and they need this bye week, and it is time for them to then come off and they just go win all their games. Now, you brought up an interesting point in the chat that you don't think a week 13 bye week is all that's cracked up to be at first glance. Get into that.
Yeah, so I think it could go one of two ways, right? Because if this team comes out slow and they're just not clicking for whatever reason, and we see teams use the bye week to kind of self-correct and self-adjust, mid-season. Sometimes that's a good week to put in like a rookie that you're trying to transition in. Like that's kind of before we knew when the bye week was, I kind of thought, well, Dylan Radens to me is your quintessential. All right, he'll start after the bye guy. He needs some time to develop. He's an offensive lineman. You don't really want to, as a contending team, you don't really want to just stick him in and take your lumps right away, which usually happens even with good offensive linemen. But with a week 13 bye, you're getting 12 games in before you probably aren't making personnel switch. Maybe you do make personnel switches if just things are going poorly with Kendall Lamb, but it may be a little too late at that point. That's kind of after 12 games with just 5 left. If you're sitting at 6-6 or 5-7 even, then you're looking at a big hill to climb to even get back into where you could be competing for a playoff spot or a division crown, obviously. So I think the bye week, it's either going to go one or two ways. If they start off hot and they're able to come into the bye week with a winning record or a really strong record, I think it's a great spot for it because that's fuel, that's fresh legs for your playoff push. If they start off sputtering, there's just that self-correct opportunity just isn't there, doesn't present itself early enough in the season to make a big difference in overall record, right? So I think it's going to go one or two ways, I think.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because we have seen the Tennessee Titans use these bye weeks to make all these adjustments that you're talking about, and you can almost pinpoint that. Okay, after this bye week, Jeffrey Simmons, I believe, came back right after the bye week, right? I mean, we not only was his ACL rehab on par with the bye week, it was just like, hey, that all equals out. He should be here after, I believe, that Chargers game. So you're right. The rookies that you need to step up, they're gonna have to step up way earlier than what we probably would like. And
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, I think a week 13 bye is good. As far as, in my opinion, they basically need to work out their kinks on the field, because they tried somewhat to do the whole kink fixing, after the bye or during the COVID, but that was tough, right? And we really don't know what was Shane Bowen and what was injuries and all this stuff. But this is the perfect time, because this is the time that you need these guys to get the rest to go for the playoff push, in my opinion. But I think all your points are valid. I really don't have a strong opinion either way. So coming
And
off the, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say we'll get to it in a second, but the Thursday night game being where it is too, you've got a couple little long breaks there towards the end of the season where guys could maybe get their legs back underneath them, and push for get guys ready for that playoff push. So there's definitely, if you can build some momentum early and come into that thing with a good record, I think there's an opportunity to really kind of use that to your advantage and kind of push you ahead at the end of the season there.
Well, I think Lauren just got home, because I just Huxley just started barking, and he is awake, as you can see behind me.
He has risen.
We are going to Week 14, Jacksonville Jaguars at home. So this is your time to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, I've shed all over Urban Meyer. I got into a little bit of Tim Tebow talk, not much, just saying that as you can see, he's not even under key additions because he doesn't really matter. This is the second matchup of their second meeting. It's at home. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are just going to be so dysfunctional by week 14 that this could end up being like a 34-7 kind of win.
Yeah, I think this is I think this is a
Like
Titans
2
win. It's
buys.
got to be. You're coming off a bye. You're coming off a bye for one. Vrabel, as you know, I mentioned this morning on Twitter, he's 8-1 with more than 10 days to prepare for an opponent, and that would apply to obviously week 1 this year. It would apply to this Jacksonville game, and then it would apply to the Dolphins game in week 17 now. So, and all of those games are home games, by the way. So they're getting extra rest, extra time to prepare, and they're playing at home. I think that makes those 3 games you point to and say those should be wins to me, especially considering the opponents. None of those opponents are particularly daunting. I know that the Dolphins were pretty good last year. And look, I think Trevor Lawrence could be really good, and he could be the second coming, right? Like this guy could be everything that everyone's chopped him up to be. I think it's you still are going to take your rookie lumps. I looked at the last 20 quarterbacks taken number 1 overall in their first year, what they did in the league. One of them had a winning record as a rookie. It does not happen. Now Lawrence, maybe he's 2 out of 21, right? Like maybe, but this team went 1-15 last year. They were really bad. The defense is, again, like the Texans. Who's making plays on this defense? Josh Allen is a good player. Joe
But is
Schobert,
he?
Miles Jack are okay. I think Josh Allen's pretty good. I think
He's
he's pretty
alright.
good.
I
Yeah,
think he's
well,
average.
so but here's the thing with Josh Allen
He's
too.
probably better than anything the Titans had last year, except for Harold Landry, but
And here's the thing: Josh Allen's probably better than Harold Landry, but look who's playing next to him: Devon Hamilton, Taven Bryan, and Jihad Ward. You're double teaming Josh Allen every snap. Like I don't care what else is happening. You are double teaming Josh Allen every snap. So I don't think they're going to have an effective pass rush. Their secondary is still bad. Miles Jack, Joe Schobert, fine. Not very good, but fine. If CJ Henderson makes the leap, maybe you get a good player in the secondary, but there's nobody else in that secondary that you're worried about. I mean, Shaquille Griffin, they signed. I think he's fine. I think he's okay. I don't think he's an elite number 1 corner. So I don't know. I just don't think the Jaguars defense is going to be good. And even if Trevor Lawrence is great for a rookie quarterback, is he going to be good enough to overcome a really bad defense? I mean, is that offense with a first year head coach with all of the stuff? I mean, everything that's up against them, is that offense going to be good enough to overcome it? A defense is going to be one of the 10 worst in the league, at least. It probably bottom 5 to me. So I just don't think so. I think they're going to be below 500. And I don't think that's a knock on Trevor Lawrence. I don't think that's a knock on anybody. I think that's a realistic expectation for a team that went 1-15 last year. They went 1-15 and they earned it. They lost 15 straight.
I don't think it's demeaning for Trevor Lawrence to say. I think he's going to be the 3rd or 4th best quarterback in out of this class just because of the situation that he's in. I just don't think the Jaguars are a good situation despite all of his talent. And I think that this Jacksonville team, like you said, you see Urban Meyer already sort of probably losing the locker room yet again. Like it seems like part 2, right? Part 1 was hiring the racist strength coach. Part 2 is now hiring Tim Tebow, or even entertaining the idea of hiring Tim Tebow. And I think, you look at that. I think the long term implications are going to run through this locker room. And like you said, the defense sucks. I think he's already starting to meddle with the running back situation. I mean, he had James Robinson, he inherited him, then went out and signed Carlos Hyde, and then spent draft capital on Travis Etienne. Doesn't really make sense what he's doing. I feel like it's just he just doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
I,
and
I, th- I think
and
that's a good way to
ultimately
put it.
I think that ultimately that's going to be the downfall of this team. Regardless, Trevor Lawrence can only do such. This isn't Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning with the Colts, because at least they had competent coaching and competent players at several levels of the defense and offense at some point. And Peyton Manning was a de facto coach, right? Too. So like this isn't the same. I don't think that Trevor Lawrence is going to be able to overcome to an extent where the Jacksonville Jaguars are a threat for a long time until at least till Urban Meyer's gone. Gonna head now to Week 15 at Pittsburgh Steelers. This was an interesting case study because you didn't really hear much about the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. Their big additions were two rookies, and I wouldn't really call it a big one, but Kalen Ballage. But Najee Harris, Kalen Ballage, and Pat Fryermuth.
Ugh, Kalen Ballage making that list is
Mr. 1.7. But
yikes.
that was it. They didn't really add anybody, but they also didn't lose anybody. I mean, they lost Bud Dupree and Mike Hilton, and I'm not calling them nobodies, but they always have people that step up in those situations, and they always have other players that step up. I think the Steelers are probably going to be second in the AFC North, double-digit wins, but I think Najee Harris is going to be talked about in a way that, maybe I don't want to say Christian McCaffrey or anything, but he's going to be a damn good rookie running back. And I think he landed in a damn good situation. And I think week 15, at that point, the Steelers should be softened up enough by the corpse of Ben Roethlisberger. Because you're either going to see Ben Roethlisberger barely holding on, or you're going to see Mason Rudolph. And at that point, heaven forbid if Ian Book lines up behind center for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I think this is going to be a good revenge game for what happened last year, and I think that the Tennessee Titans are going to go up to Pittsburgh and win this game.
I agree with you. I think the Titans are going to win this game, but I disagree with you. The notion that this is a good landing spot for Najee Harris. I think he's going to get plenty of opportunity, but I think that offensive line is their weak. I think that's their weakness. They lost Alejandro Villanueva, who's their longtime left tackle. They lost Pouncey, their center. They still haven't really replaced Ramon Foster at left guard. And I think the guy that played there last year, Filer, who actually did a pretty decent job, left as well. I think he went to the Chargers, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, right now they've got Chukwuma Okorafor, Kevin Dotson, J.C. Hassenauer, David DeCastro, who has really declined in the last couple years, and Zach Banner as their offensive line. I think that's a major problem. And I think Big Ben being a statue makes that even worse. I think that offense is going to look a lot like it did late last season for most of the year. I think Najee, that's not a judgment on Najee Harris, who I think is a tremendously talented player. I just think the blocking isn't going to be there for him. And I think they're going to struggle to run the ball still. And he'll probably get a ton of opportunity, and he'll probably catch the ball in the passing game a good bit too, because I don't think they're going to be able to protect. So you might see a lot of checkdowns. But yeah, I think the offense is still, it's kind of a good case study, right? Like, the Titans on one hand have a strong offensive line that they keep investing in, and they don't have great receivers outside of A.J. Brown. The Steelers are kind of the opposite. They've got no offensive line, and they've kind of let it languish ever since Mike Munchak left. But they've got these great receivers. They go 4 deep at wide receiver, and I think it's kind of a good case study. Like, what's more important? Do you have having a great offensive line or having a great receiving core? So,
but does Ben Roethlisberger kind of skew that? I mean, like the case study. Like if you're talking
a little bit,
case study, I mean, he
sure.
kind of skews that.
And yeah, he's 38, and he's not like a Brady 38, right? Like he's not been taking care of his body and eating avocado ice cream for
he's
the
a
last 10
Brady.
years.
He's a 74-year-old Brady. But that's what Ben Roethlisberger is.
Yeah, he's 38 going on 58. But he and I think the defense will still probably be pretty good. I mean, Dupree, I think, is a big loss. But they're getting some guys back healthy. And Mike Hilton's also a pretty significant loss. But getting Devin Bush back, they did end up bringing Vince Williams back. TJ Watt, Stephon Tuitt, Tyson Alu, Cameron Hayward. They're all still there. The defense is still going to be really good. So I kind of see them like I see the Patriots. I think the Steelers are probably a little bit better than the Patriots, but if the quarterback situation continues to devolve, like I think it did last year, especially late in the year, and you know how Big Ben is. He starts to get banged up and he's a wuss. He can't take it. Like he winces every time he throws the ball and complains, and he comes like hobbling off the field only to go back out there 2 plays later. He doesn't like to play hurt, doesn't like to play uncomfortable. I think catching them late in the season is probably a good thing because, like you said, I think the wear and tear of 14 games, 13 games, whatever he's going to have played by then will be showing on the face of Ben Roethlisberger by the time they play the Titans.
Basically, it sounds like you were describing Ben Roethlisberger as being the J.C. Treader quarterbacks. So we are heading into Week 16. It is a primetime game against San Francisco 49ers. 6-10 last year in the NFC West, and they were last in the NFC West. Trey Lance, Trey Sermon, Alex Mack, Mohamed Sanu, Maurice Hurst, Arden Key, and Wayne Gallman have been added to that team while losing Kerry Hyder and Ahkello Witherspoon, both to the Seattle Seahawks. Tevin Coleman over to the New York Jets, Kendrick Bourne to New England Patriots, Solomon Thomas and Jerick McKinnon rounding that out. You have to think that with either a healthy Jimmy Garoppolo or a healthy Trey Lance, this team should see a considerable uptick in their offensive production. And also, don't forget a healthy Deebo Samuel. They have Brandon Ayuk coming back. George Kittle's still there. I mean, you got Raheem Mostert still there. And Trey Sermon's no slouch, by the way. What do you make of this San Francisco team? Week 16, Trey Lance probably has a few starts under his belt at this point. Scary matchup.
It's a very scary matchup to me because I think that the Niners, and maybe this is just my love of Kyle Shanahan, because I think he's tremendous. I think he's a great coach. I love the way they've built this roster too. I think this is a team that is poised. They just have to get some injury luck, right? They had injury Armageddon last year. They had Nick Bosa go down. They lost almost everyone of any significance on that team. They lost them for a significant amount of time. George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Garoppolo, obviously. They were without a ton of pieces, and then they went out and they re-fortified the offensive line. They brought back Trent Williams. They brought in Alex Mack, who is a beautiful fit and has played with Shanahan before, knows this offense, is going to be fantastic for them at center. And I think center is an important role in this offense. And we've seen it here with the Titans with Ben Jones. So Kittle's healthy. Deebo, Ayuk, I love those guys. I think this team, if they can get just a little bit of injury luck, is set up to be an absolute Super Bowl contender. And I think catching them on a short travel week, this is going to be the Thursday night game in Nashville. The Niners are playing at home the week before, so they're traveling on 4 days rest across the country to play this game. I think that helps the Titans, but man, this is a very, very tough matchup on paper. And obviously the Niners have to get to this point in the season without the injury bug biting them again. But as long as they don't get struck down again, I think this team is going to be, fighting for a 1 seed by this time of year.
Any extra advantage for the Tennessee Titans being that they have been around now Matt LaFleur and Art Smith for 3 seasons in a row?
A little bit, yeah. I think it's going to be a very familiar looking offense. I don't know that that's going to help Rashaan Evans.
I don't think there's. Hey, Week 16 should be Monty Rice season according to everybody on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, maybe it will be if Evans keeps trending the way that he has been. But it certainly didn't help Evans that he had played Matt LaFleur when they played Green Bay last year. So, yeah. I think it helps to some degree that it'll be familiar looking concepts, but that doesn't always help you to defend it, especially when you've got a guy like Shanahan who's pulling the strings.
And we end our AFC East tour with the Miami Dolphins on week 17, 10-6, second AFC East. They added Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle, Jalen Phillips, Hunter Long, Justin Coleman, and Malcolm Brown. And they only lost Matt Breida, Bobby McCain, Calvin Noy, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now, obviously, this team has decided that, hey, we're going to give Tua no excuses this year. We have surrounded him with now Devontae Parker, Jakeem Grant, Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle, and Hunter Long, and Mike Gesicki. No excuses for this team. At this point, the Miami Dolphins are going to be frothing at the mouth because they are going to be in a playoff hunt for sure, whether that's for the AFC East title or whether that's for a wild card spot. This is not a game that you can overlook for the Tennessee Titans, who are probably going to be in the same kind of scenario. This is what I would kind of deem, and I haven't deemed a must win so far in this whole schedule, but looking ahead and projecting what I'm projecting, this is a must win for the Tennessee Titans in week 17. And it's the first must win, which makes me feel a little bit good about the schedule, but also terrified that this could be a must win because the Miami Dolphins under Brian Flores have outperformed expectations these last 2 years. Give me your thoughts on this team and your thoughts on the matchup against Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Dolphins are, it all comes down to Tua for me. Like it's if Tua is who they drafted him to be, this team's going to be really, really good. Because I mean, speed for days in the wide receiving room. They've got a ton of tight ends. They've got a good young offensive line that's still developing and gelling together. The defense took a huge leap last year, and they added more pieces. They went out and got Benardrick McKinney at inside linebacker, who I didn't think played very well for the Texans, but they obviously think they see something there, so I'm interested to see how that works out. But Christian Wilkins, Raekwon Davis, Emmanuel Ogbah, Jalen Phillips, who they drafted, along the defensive line, that's a salty front. And then in the secondary, you got Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, and then playing along with those guys, you got guys like Justin Coleman, Noah Igbinoghene, their first round draft pick last year. There's a lot of talent in the secondary, a lot of talent up front. I think that's a good combination. I think this is good. I think I wouldn't be surprised, and I still think the Bills are a really good team. I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins won the AFC East, honestly. I could totally see it happening.
You could see, I think you could see all three teams, the Patriots, the Dolphins, and the Bills, one of those guys. I mean, obviously one of them have to win it, but I mean, I think you can make an argument for any of them.
Yeah, I think you could too. I struggle a little bit more with the Patriots than I do the other two, but
yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins are a real threat. I think this is going to be a tough matchup. It'll depend on two things. I think is Tua still healthy? Because we know he's been banged up over the course of his career. This is going to be very late into the season. He's not going to have Ryan Fitzpatrick there to bail him out again this year. And then two, is Tua playing well? Because I mean that's going to be the key to this whole thing.
Yeah, so we're going to head, and I agree with you, and we're going to head into week 18 because, of course, the Tennessee Titans, for I believe the third year in a row, are going to have to play a game against the Houston Texans. Is this going to be a fucking meaningful game for the third year in a row where we have to win this game and the Tennessee Titans have to win it to either A, get in the playoffs or B, get in the division? Or are we going to lock it up by now?
I think it's probably going to be a meaningful game.
I'm afraid. That's what I'm afraid of too.
I as much as I would love to see it, and it's certainly possible. Like I would not put like a 14-3 season or 13-4 season out of realm for this team. Like it's possible if things click, if the defense works, if the revamped defense works. And becomes a top 10 unit, and the offense manages to not slip and kind of pick up where they've left off the last couple years, then this team absolutely could run away and hide in the division. That's certainly possible. But do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. Not until they show me that they can do it consistently. There's still just too many of those like Bengals games where you just go, you're clearly the better team. What are you doing losing this game? And that happens to almost every team in the NFL. But as long as that's still happening fairly regularly, I just struggle to say you're going to run away with the AFC South and play a meaningless game in Week 18.
Will this be, at least if it's a meaningful game, will this be a game where maybe you see the Tennessee Titans bench Derrick Henry maybe in the fourth quarter, because we've seen the Tennessee Titans run away with it? Is that at least a possibility?
I think so. Yeah, I mean,
Well, the rushing title's not on the line, right?
well, yeah. If he's not, going to break Eric Dickerson's record, which is very possible, I think this year, and it would be kind of funny to see him do it against the Texans again, go for 2K once again in Houston. But yeah, I think unless that kind of stuff is happening, if you're playing Davis Mills in the Texans in Week 18, go out there and put them away early and rest your guys and get AJ Brown and Derrick Henry, sipping on Gatorade in the second half and wearing hats and just kicking back and relaxing, watching some Logan Woodside.
Are the Texans bad enough to go 0-17?
Ooh, yes, they are. They are bad enough to go 0-17. I don't know if they will, but I definitely think it's in play. If Deshaun Watson doesn't play, I mean, how are they winning anything? I just
Yeah.
don't.
I'm with it. Well, on that note, we will call it a night. We were the happy hour and a half, I guess you could say, for Broadway Sports, presented by BroadwaySportsMedia.com. You can follow Mike on Twitter at Mike Miracles. You can follow me on Twitter at FWordsPod. Go follow at BroadwayTN so you can make sure and set notifications on so you make sure you get all the live broadcasts for the soccer guys, for us, for everything. That way you never miss anything and you always know that we're here. For Broadway Sports Media, for Mike Herndon, I'm Zach Lyons, and we are out.